Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to another episode of electricairmobility.news. And this time we're going to talk about the paradigm shift in aerospace, in aero mobility, and that is the how to unlock the energy convergence of advanced air mobility. My name is Nicholas Zard. I am the CEO and founder of Electric Air Mobility LLC, and we are a company that offers vertiport designs, implementations, and energy solutions. In other words, we offer a whole infrastructure ecosystem around what we now call vertiports. And if you're not aware of what vertiports are, they're more modernized airport and heliports that include various forms of energy. Hence the topic for today. How do you unlock this energy conundrum? How do you wrap up this convergence of energy within the advanced air mobility industry? Well, it's simple and not that simple. So obviously, the world of aero mobility is undergoing a once-in-a-lifetime change, and not just aerospace, but if you think about it, the automotive world itself too, with the introduction of electric vehicles or EVs. And of course, now we're also seeing a lot happening in the maritime world where we have a lot of electric boats coming on board, and not necessarily the ones you hear the most about. There are some fantastic stories right now that are definitely under the radar of the news, and I wish I had a cloning machine to talk a lot more about what else is happening, but I am sort of focusing right now on aerospace because this is where the bulk of the energy is going into, at least as far as I can see, for the next 10 years or so. So we're really right now transitioning away from what we consider to be conventional, traditional airports and heliports into a sort of modernization of these kind of hubs, which we call vertiports. And we're also experiencing a paradigm shift, complete paradigm shift, when it comes to the energy convergence that it entails. So when we talk about electric vertical takeoff and landing, eVTOLs, we also talk about electric short takeoff and landing, eSTOLs, and of course electric conventional takeoff and landing, eCTOLs. So eVTOLs, take off, fly, and take off vertically, fly horizontally, and land vertically. Of course, in a real world, they'll do exactly like helicopters, coming at an angle, and then for the last few feet, just touch down. eSTOLs are short takeoff and landing aircraft, and they already exist with traditional piston engines, but we're also developing, well, when I say we, not me, I'm not an engineer, but a lot of great companies are designing eSTOLs that are fantastic. Go and check out electra.aero. It'll give you a good idea of what a smart eSTOL looks like. And of course, now we have also eCTOLs being developed. Mostly, I think you probably have heard about eViation, where they're Alice, and basically a 9-seat aircraft with 2 electric propellers behind, very much like what a Gulfstream jet, private jet looks like, or a Dassault. Will they be private jets? Not necessarily. Of course, some of them will be. And, we do need the private jet industry to usher in a ton of innovations that we normally see coming down at the 737, Airbus 320X family, sort of thing. So it's always a good thing to see it happening. But right now, let's get back to energy convergence. I'm a master of tangents, obviously. The heart of advanced electric mobility is really a convergence of how do we get these EVs to work with these electric aircrafts, to work with these electric boats to work. And the one fundamental thing they all have in common is energy. So the energy for vertistops and vertiports, well, vertistops might not have energy, but for vertiports and vertihubs, the most important energy will be the electric part of the energy, and that's going to be when we design a vertiport, we design it with one thing in mind. First of all, we see what is the best place for a vertiport, and there we have 2 choices. Either we already have an airport, most likely a secondary or tertiary airport. They're usually underserved, but they have a lot of space, and that's going to be very important for us. Or we also look at traffic patterns, and not just aerial traffic patterns, by the way, but road patterns. Where are the railroads? Where are the public transit? Where are the trains, the metros, if any? And if you're next to a waterway, such as we are here in Savannah, what kind of waterway systems do we have? And we sort of try to figure out the best place for that. And it's really wonderful working with these companies that figure out the best strategic spot, because it takes into consideration topography, geolocation, and of course the strategy of the best place for mobility convergence for a vertistop that will morph into a vertiport, that will morph eventually into a vertihub. You remember that article I wrote. So it's true that the grand vision so far has been, huge vertihubs and everything, but we don't start there really. That would be incredibly wasteful in terms of resources and finances, because vertihubs won't happen for another 10 years. Vertihubs will need vertiports first, and even before vertiports, we'll need to have vertistops first. So we have to go back once we are finished with finding out what the best strategic location is to figure out what kind of energy solutions they will have. Obviously, 3 energy solutions, right? Electricity, hydrogen, and of course, liquid conventional energy such as Jet A, kerosene, and what we're finally coming up with, sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF. Now, why the insistence on electric mobility? Why the insistence on electric aircraft, and why electric charging stations, and of course storage systems? Well, that's obviously because the exceptional efficiency of an electric motor, and it ranges from 90 to 99%, meaning 90 to 99%, and 99%, yes, it's in labs, but 90% of the electrons that go in an electric motor spin the electric motor. There's very little wasted resources in an electric motor. And also, they deliver 100% of their torque as soon as it spins, right? So this is something that is a complete paradigm shift compared to an internal combustion engine with pistons that need to ramp up its revs and then finally give you more or less a range where it's more or less efficient, right? And after that, it's not efficient anymore. Hence, that's why turbines are so much more efficient. That's why our bigger airplanes use turbines that drive a big fan. And so if you look at the efficiency of an EV, by the way, take a Lucid Air or Tesla or whatever, the efficiency generally is 80% to 92%, meaning 80% to 92% of the electrons that go into that motor move the vehicle. Compare that to a gasoline engine that's only 30%, 33%, maybe a little bit more these days. But think about it, 1/3 of your gasoline tank moves you and the car. 2/3 is lost in heat and friction. So that's why we're really excited about working with electricity for many reasons. First of all, electricity is made locally here. This is a question of national security, and also, it's patriotic to defend your own energy and keep it at home instead of wasting it with other countries that might or might not have ties with dubious other countries. Just a thought. So, of course, when we work with charging stations, we always take in consideration how far is the energy source, how far away is the utility, how far away is the substation. All of these need to come into our thinking. When we deal with electric charging stations, the ones we have right now are anywhere from 350 to about 600 amps, maybe even 700 amps. And that's going to be fine to get going. It's going to be fine to charge one eVTOL. But we're already working on generation 2 and even generation 3 of charging stations. And I can tell you so far that generation 2, we're looking at anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 amps. And generation 3, we're going to go way up into the 20,000 amps. This is something that's actually already done out there. It's just really hard to convert this down to a much lower amperage level when there's not yet a real business model. So again, my tagline of there are more solutions than obstacles is very true in this case. AeroVironment, AV, and ABB, they know how to make these big charging stations that pump out 20,000 amps. Utilities know how to do that. On the lower spectrum end of things, we have the EV charging stations, and those are great for EVs. Those are fairly small battery packs, and they handle anywhere from 3 to 4 to maybe 500 amps. They will peak maybe at 600 amps. But what we need in electric aviation, especially when we get to eCTOLs, we're going to need 4,000 or 5,000 amps to charge these aircraft. So that's a lot of energy that goes into this. And since we are talking about charging infrastructure, we also want to have enough energy the next day when traffic comes in and comes out. And that means we need to charge at night, a battery system that we can bury underground, charge at night when the grid is not really taxed. Usually electricity is much more affordable. Store that energy and use that for two things: to recharge the electric aircraft, but also to make hydrogen. And that's the other component that we put into all of this, is now we're making hydrogen without electricity. We're also storing it. So we've got two storage devices: electricity with batteries, hydrogen with our whole manufacturing process, which is, by the way, no bigger than a container. And of course, the third one, not least of all important, is Jet A, which eventually will have sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, and everything. So one note on battery storage, and this is really also an interesting and fascinating topic that deserves hours of conversations around it, is right now we have roughly 200 to 240 kilowatt hour cells, and the battery pack's a little bit less. But that's enough to actually get most of these eVTOLs up in the air. Maybe not fully loaded and fully going to long distances, but it's a great start. And of course, by next year, we'll have a lot more. But we're really going towards the 350 to ideally 500 kilowatt hour packs. And guess what? These packs are out there right now as we speak. They're being tested. They're being used. And the chemistry changes a little bit from what we're used to, lithium ion, but it's still more or less the same idea. And the one thing that's really amazing about when we talk about battery technology, especially since we started using lithium, is in how far it has come in how little time. In 20 years, we went from batteries that were anywhere from 50 to 70 kilowatt hour energy density, right? So how much energy is packed within a given space and weight of a battery, to now roughly 240. Now think about it. Gasoline has not increased its energy in density, and neither has hydrogen. The only thing that has gotten better is that engines now can burn gasoline better than they did before. However, that's been nullified with the increasing weight of vehicles. So as vehicles get heavier and heavier, the updates that we've made on the efficiency that we've made on, and I say we, I'm talking about engineers, that the automotive industry has made with gasoline engines has been nullified by the extra added weight on the vehicle. So that's why a car today still does anywhere from 22 to 33 miles per gallon, the same that it did in the 1970s, right? So we've got that big problem that we're just not getting out of. And when it comes to hydrogen, well, yeah, things have gotten much better. Fuel cells are much more efficient, but still the efficiency of a fuel cell land vehicle, I'm talking about an EV that uses hydrogen, generally speaking is about 66%, meaning 66% of the hydrogen that you use in a hydrogen fuel cell car moves the car. The rest is, again, loss of efficiency, frictions, and things like that. So hydrogen, however, in advanced air mobility has a much better bet of working, because from one secondary or tertiary airport, we can create enough energy, enough hydrogen to fuel an aircraft that will be a hybrid aircraft using hydrogen to go to another secondary or tertiary airport that, again, has its own locally made hydrogen. So you see, we can go hop from one place to the other, fuel very quickly, much faster than recharging a battery, and use, again, that local energy. Now, this is a wonderful thing that we don't talk enough about, but we're always talking about land security. We're always talking about, the security of our country and everything. There's nothing better than the electric mobility world, because we get to produce energy locally and keep it locally. Well, of course, we can sell it to our neighbors and our friends and everything, but it has a lot to do with keeping our country safe and everything. I've managed to talk about electricity, Jet A, SAF, and of course hydrogen. Now comes the management of all of this. And without going into too much detail about vertiport management and all of this, what we're really looking for when we're designing a vertiport on the energy side of things is we're looking for a management system that will take into consideration what the vertiport management system will gather as far as data. And this data is simple. Where are the aircraft coming from? Where are they going? What is their load? What is their capacity? Who is flying? And this is really important. What membership do they have? Where do who do they belong with? What airlines do they fly with? Do they have an EV? Will they charge at the vertiport? All of this helps us understand how much energy we will need to capture at night and create in the case of hydrogen, but also keep on tap for the following day to not only meet our demands, but guess what? We're going to have extra energy. We're going to have extra hydrogen. We're going to have extra electricity. And this is where usually eyes pop wide open for a lot of municipalities, cities, airports, heliport companies, and future vertiport owners and operators is, guess what? You are an energy provider now. Working with fantastic companies such as what we have with Electric Air Mobility LLC, we work with household brand names. I won't name them here for obvious reasons, but we work with companies that have been around for decades working with electricity, working with hydrogen, and that have smart grid capabilities and capacities that they can add to our vertiport. So now our vertiports are designed to be not only mobility hubs, but energy hubs. And so I've been trying to figure it out these days is how do I convey that message that we are not just an airport in the conventional sense of the term. We're not just a heliport, again, in the conventional sense of the term. You are a mobility and an energy hub. You greet people. Eventually, Vertistops will morph into Vertiports, will morph into Vertihubs, and Vertihubs will have movie theaters, will have doctor's offices, we'll have grocery stores, we'll have restaurants, we'll have entertainment, anything you can think of, amenities and things like that. So you have that, trickle revenue coming in, but you'll also have the energy trickle revenue of not only charging the aircraft that are coming to your vertiport, but using that energy and reselling it back to the grid. And of course, since we now, unfortunately, are especially in the US, our grid is antiquated, has aged very badly, suffers from maintenance, from deferred maintenance, unfortunately, at the profit of at the benefit of profits. So now, utilities will have to work with us. We have to work together. Nobody wants to over-domineer anything, but they will have to work with us because we are going to become little substation subcontractors, which already exist in the industry. So it's going to be very interesting to strike that balance, and we are starting to talk to a lot of them. But it's a long process, I would like to say. So we're very excited to, especially myself at Electric Air Mobility LLC, very excited to be part of this industry, simply enough because I've been in it for almost 20 years. I've seen the whole, way back then when we were talking about electric cars, we didn't call them electric vehicles. I saw the potential, obviously, I didn't like electric vehicles, by the way. I come from a very old-fashioned, Italian cars, Alfa Romeo, Maserati, French Bugattis and things like that. That's where I came from, single propeller airplanes like my father had. But when I finally drove an AC propulsion e-box and I drove one of the very first Tesla Roadsters, I really got it. It's like, hey, I love a good IPA, but I still like a good lager. I like French cheese, but I like Dutch cheese at the same time. And so it really made me understand this is a car, this is fun, and that electric motor has so much to offer. So I saw the potential 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road. And I have to say, toot my own horn, I was right. And I was right also about electric air mobility in 2014 when I saw Dufour Hamilton, at the time now called Dufour Aerospace, flying their Acrobat electric airplane. I saw the potential, And then, thankfully, by 2019, finally, I understood that, you know what, infrastructure is the most important thing, because without infrastructure, we've got pretty airplanes, pretty cars, but nothing to do them with, or nothing to fly them or drive them on or anything like that. So the beautiful part about, and maybe unanticipated part about vertiports and its ecosystem, is that it became also an energy hub. And the more we develop our vertiports, the more we develop the ecosystem, the infrastructure ecosystem, the more we look into the energy aspects of things, and also the creature comforts, amenities for passengers, the more we find that we have so many other revenue streams that are coming down later down the pipeline here, and it's extremely interesting to develop all of that. Once again, my name is Nicholas Zart. I hope you've enjoyed this on the convergence of energy within advanced air mobility, specifically on the vertiport ecosystem side of things. We'd love to hear your questions. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear what are your thoughts on all of this, and also, well, we'll talk about nuclear energy at some other point. It's finally coming back, and I think now we're having good, intelligent discussions. We've moved away from, you know, the big nuclear reactors and all of the potential catastrophes that can spell. But in the meantime, hope you've enjoyed this. Please leave a comment, share, subscribe, do anything you can do to help this YouTube channel, this podcast, this website continue to be free by subscribing, by putting your comments. And if you go to Patreon, please buy me a coffee. I still have to update that Patreon site. I still haven't done it. Well, we'll see you very soon for another episode of Electric Air Mobility News.